Hi, Mark Small. This is Civil Discourse Now. It is December 11th, 2024. I'm here with Cassie Jackson. Kathy, how are you today?
Good. How you doing, Mark? Thanks for having me back on.
Oh, I'm doing okay and glad to have you on here and everything. We're going to do two segments here. First one, we're going to talk about generally what's happening with the nature of possibly Trump taking the oath of office on January 20th. And then the next segment, we're going to do the latest developments up in Hamilton County with Indiana's Lieutenant Governor elect wannabe dictator Micah Beckwith. So, but on in terms of the whole thing as far as the election is concerned, I blogged last few days about how we're looking at a dictatorship in the event that Trump is sworn into office. Anybody who says that's not true, I mean, you've got what he's said as a promise, the people whom he's nominating for different positions. You pull out the Project 2025 manual, which is a playbook for the coming 4 years, and he said, "No, that's not it. That's not it." Or right-wing idiots saying, "I don't want to talk about it. Don't know anything about it." And now they're going like, "Yeah, it's what we're going to use." Oh, I got that one by you. No, they got by anybody by lying, and that's a dictatorship. So what people have to understand is you either are looking at a dictatorship or you're looking at a recognition that that presidency is illegal. The reason it would be illegal is because of the 14th Amendment, Section 3. But before that, let's say that everybody goes, "Well, okay, look, he got bummed out about 2020. You guys were bummed out about 2024. Just let's all put it to rest. Let him get sworn in." Yeah, and then what he's going to do is say,
Right.
"No, now I'm dictator. I'm going with my Project 2020. I'm going to declare null and void anything Biden did." And by the way, any Democratic members of Congress who were elected in 2020, they're out too, just because
Right.
I'm a dumbass. I mean, because he wants to do it. A dictator can do that. There
That's what
is
I
no
think.
rule of law.
Yeah, that's what I think people don't understand is that we have to prevent a dictatorship, and the reason is because anything prior that all of the work or anything that's happened before is going to be erased by him as a dictator, right? So let's prevent him from becoming a dictator.
Yeah, and another thing is like, uh, I've heard people saying, "Well, I'd want to know more about the guy that was the shooter that almost assassinated Trump." Here's a clue: there was no real assassination attempt. And these are the same dumbasses that are running around saying 9/11 was a hoax. No, it wasn't. But what Trump did, the first thing that he did as an attempted assassination is that his ear, he used dye job or something for his ear. The second one was on his golf course. The guy didn't even get close
Yeah.
to him. Those were false flag operations. Those were fakes, just as fake as his hair is. But
But let me also just take a moment to recognize that someone lost their life during that on one of his fakes, and that happened to be a firefighter who had dedicated his life to being a public servant. And those are the kind of casualties that I just want to make sure we mention that.
yeah, and so you go. I mean, I didn't hear. It would have been national outrage like 20 years ago
Yeah,
when something like that happened. I
yeah,
remember when uh, John Wayne Hinckley tried to assassinate Ronald Reagan. That shut down the news cycle on the same day as the NCAA basketball championship was being played. As a Hoosier, it's kind of our orientation. But that in Pennsylvania was kind of like, oh, okay, well,
it
and
just
and no, and Trump violated protocol by standing up and going, yeah, or something like that. That was for naught. But what we're looking at now is a very real situation in which, if he is sworn into office, we will not have any more elections. And so you have to weigh. On the one hand, you've got his lazy, stinking butt on this hand, and you've got whomever would be put together to address what Russia really has done to our government. And we were invaded. They've been hacking into our computers since like 2015 in earnest, and nobody's disputed that. In fact, Trump said in 2016, yeah, they hacked into computers, so what? And that's what he said. So, anyways, that's where we're at right now. I know we're trying to get people aware and try to make sure that by any legal means available, Trump is prevented from taking the oath of office on January 20th.
And how realistic is that? Like, how realistic is it? Like, who? Yeah, I don't even
Not
know.
sure. I mean, look, it's a long, everything's a long shot at this point because they're not supposed to ignore provisions of the Constitution. I mean, that's kind of the Constitution. But they sure are here.
Right.
And that 14th Amendment, Section 3, was not written solely for former officers or elected officials in the Confederacy. That was done prospectively because, as one of the sponsors of that measure said in Congress, we want to make sure that this is here to prevent future insurrections. So, in other words, when people say, well, just Civil War, no, it wasn't. And so that's where we're at right now. So keep your eyes open, write to the White House and say President Biden should declare a state of emergency. He can do that.
So that's the step, is to declare a state of emergency, and that can shut things down.
Yeah.
I
mean, all you have to do is just use what Trump has said he's going to use once he's in office.
Right.
And then just say, okay, and then actually investigate things. And how many members of Congress asked him for a pardon before he left office?
Right.
Kind of indicates they were in the insurrection too. And
which you were mentioning earlier when we talked is admitting that there was a crime committed. If you're asking someone to pardon you, you are now taking the step saying there's a reason that you need to be pardoned. And that's a fucking crime.
I mean, it's just kind of like not really bright what they've done, but they're the ones that could very easily be running this country for the rest of our lives.
I know. I don't understand why people think that this is just like, just that all of the checks and balances are going to stay in place, right? Like, what are we talking about? People are like, it's all right.
Once Ronald Reagan took office in 1981, a lot of the programs that we had really felt were there for everybody's protection started getting gutted, one of which was public education. So he did his best when he was compos mentis, but people acting in his name did their best to gut public education because they don't want people to be able to think. So that's
exactly right. That is yes, they don't want people
coming up. Cassie and I are going to talk about new events in Hamilton County. Thanks very much, and we'll be back in just a few.
Thanks, Mark.